Hello and welcome. Today is Tuesday, the 4th of July 2017. Welcome. My name is Derek, and let's take a look at some cryptocurrencies. Everything I say in the video is based on how I see it. If I'm playing something, that's what I'm doing. And everything you do on your own end is at your own risk and own reward. Let's talk about the Bitcoin, and really the entire market has the similar trend. And that is, it's been going sideways practically since the start of June, and it hasn't broken its sideways consolidation either to the up or the downside. As we can see, Bitcoin going sideways in here, pretty much the alternates in the similar sort of fashion as well. And within such, it's had a few days up a little bit, but we got all of these these lows that are higher, and we're also got some lower highs as well. That's neutrality and decision. We can make a trend line that connects 4 different peaks now, and the resistance one, well, it's barely being taken out right now. It's pierced. It doesn't mean it's going to. It's the next stage. Ultimately, it's got to get above this high. And ultimately, it's got to confirm that it wants to break within this resistance. And the easiest way to see that is within the 4-hour chart. So let's bring that upon us. Now, the first thing to figure out is this is an overall neutrality format. So when I'm talking about a good versus bad, risk versus reward situation, there's a decent chance that this is just going to keep going sideways. But I'm going to be talking about what's happening now with the break or playing within this resistance level field. But there has been several lower or higher lows and several lower highs along the way. And as stated, getting above this previous key band area is its next target for what it needs to do to really start say, yes, I want to end this neutral cycle to the upside, because really getting above here is where you can start talking about that. So it's got one more stage just to get there. But as it's played, this level of resistance established in here after an a significant down move, that's a better statement, and then a sell-off, a decent sized one, but not as big as its previous. And I like this area in here, how it congested within the 18 average of highs after several periods up. And then after such a nice little breakout, come back to where it came from, breakout, and it's back again to this more bigger level to where it came from. Therefore, risk versus reward. Up versus down. And like I stated, it could just keep going sideways in whatever range for a few more days or weeks. I don't know, but I realize as it plays out, there's a reason why I usually buy here on codes, because the probability odds of it to be support and a move to this level is pretty good. So usually, I mean, this is my base currency, so I'm not doing such, but if this was just a play that I'm looking at, I like the buy opportunity here only because it's coming back to where it came from. And the alternate situation just doesn't happen as often, at least in the crypto land. You have this big support in here, and this is that failed breakout because you get over a key level. And once you get to this point, you're expecting to do more than just barely break it and then leave. So the failed breakout here could set up a fast move to the downside. But that's, of course, if this thing has a hard time holding in this lower area, you would get to concern, because we're still in a major neutral situation where things are just basically going sideways. Within the weekly chart, you can see that so well within this little, just a wedge-shaped formation, but several weeks up in a row. And it's digesting or consolidating these previous gains. And it's had its break from its key area in here. Notice decent sized move. And the correction has been limited. Its price has very much also been limited. So that's one way of stating, hey, I can correct more either through price and or time. But even though it's just had even just this little bit, if the action does manage to get above here, you're really going to have to give the buyers the benefit of the doubt in control and the situational odds to have some significant gains on that scenario of market breaks 3,000. And on the long-term time frame, the last place that it came from is in here. So that would be a deep correction. But when you have a situation where you have a large rise, we already know short term that this is a key level or intermediate term. So this would be an area for a first correction if there was one. Let's move on to the Ether. And unlike Bitcoin's daily chart, it doesn't have any prospect of looking to break it to the upside. As we've talked about, this is what cryptos are doing. Up, sideways, up, sideways, up. And you get the odd price correction like this, up, sideways. This has been now an extended correction on a sideways manner. We can see that 240 has been a key level of support. And this area here, we could assume so as well. We could see it better on a 4-hour chart. And within such in here, the Bitcoin is looking great on it, where it's having a nice little breakout pattern. It's not the case within this one. The key of 240 support, then we can see a few bands in and around 220 and a little bit north before at the 200 mark, but a lot of choppy movements. You had this sideways move, and really this is the only leg of notice because you're basically chopping around in here at a floor lower than this, and it's just further sideways consolidation with a little bit of bias to the downside of the point at that point. But because it's in such a secular bull market, and that gives it reason to say, yeah, but it's bullish because of that. So it's very neutral in my book, and yeah, a little up bias. However, when I cross it with Bitcoin, there's the warning sign right in here from this move, situation in which you've established this low, come back to this 18 average and several periods of hugging this band, and it looks like it's now just breaking this support. Again, you want to shorten the time frame out. And within this 4-hour time frame, there we see it's just now barely breaking in here, also leaving its 18 average. So if it's going to continue, you could look to maybe expect a move down to this 93 level as its next support test. And it's had an interesting fall in this point, a little bit of a rally, and just a small sideways consolidation point. I can't state how likely it is that it goes down in here, but I expect there to be a lot of wild up and down moves, and for this to most likely work its way to the upside. But I'm doing a lot on what the webbot has been stating on Ethereum as far as how well it can do, as well as how beautiful its daily chart is. Those two are indications that, okay, it's going through its selling secular position. And as stated, all of these markets had its up move concluding near the end of May, start of June. And then they just went sideways and down a bit. And they're just going to go back up at some point. And it's a lot of it's a waiting game. And I think for that kind of strategy, especially for long-term investors, that's a very good way of looking at it. And of course, the big risks are always going to be thinking that you are buying cheaper when you never know if there can be any type of possible deeper corrections. And you can see maybe just a move here, you can lose half your value, or you can at least buy it back at the much cheaper price. Let's move on to Litecoin, as this one is really taken off. Another up day as we see the pattern leaving the band. I didn't want to chase it up here because I wanted to see it have a correctionary phase, which is why I bought in here instead. And now I'm seeing the price action move up to this key point. And if there's any type of resistance in here, just quickly looking at it, we can see, to me, anything in here is easily safe as far as it's a normal type of correction. But it's not like it's a surprise for this resistance to get taken through. And even for that matter in here, yeah, maybe you'll find a bit of resistance, come back and do something else later. But you can get situations oftentimes where we can just even briefly see in here that this was a level of resistance, and you have big moves. They can be possible. Right now, the momentum is purely to the upside, and we can see it's in the early stages right now of leaving this band. And the 4-hour time frame, this is a situation which, nice move, there's some sideways consolidation pattern, and after this break from this point in here, beautiful straight up move, a little bit of sideways, straight up move, a little bit of sideways, and it's going back up again. So the buyers have been in control since the key point of it leaving this 18 average this last time and just having what has been a nice, beautiful run. And it's done so far from here to here. We can even see in here when it was leaving the band how it could have a move from 107 up to eventually, well, even immediately up to 180. That's some serious gains without much sellers coming in the way. And that was, of course, when all the bull indications were there. And let's move on to the next chart, which will be ETC. And it has further continuation of this sideways movement. So I'm not going to spend too much time to go over it. But again, just going over how the markets are going sideways up. And sometimes you just don't know how long these sideways moves can appear. And when these things get going, like we're seeing with Litecoin as it's transitioning, they can have some decent plays. The dash chart just continues to hang in there. It's pretty much supporting this level of resistance. And I was stating before how I was liking how this was supporting in here. But overall, slow, sure, and steady. The trend pattern, I'm not going to say is getting stronger, but it sure as heck is still at a nice, strong key level. And this resistance level now established on a couple of points. Breaking through that, there really isn't much in the way until, of course, not a straight line, but its previous high in at around 8 dozen. Looking at Ripple XRP, which I really want nothing of right now, slowly slipping through this 18 average of lows. That doesn't really mean too much. It's got extreme low volatility after this wild up move, wild down move, wild up move, wild down move, doing nothing. Band is pretty much flat with a small basis of the 18 average of highs starting to steadily go lower, showing that there is a very much lack of buyers in this market right now. And I wouldn't be surprised short term to have a move in here, but I need a lot bigger of a sell-off to even consider going long. You pretty much know where I'm talking about. And I need this 18 average of band to show a better bullish signal to go long on strength. With ZEM or XEM NEM, it's 3 days up in a row. It's given up back a lot of its gains for today, but it's got a long ways to go before I can see this 18 average give me a good buy signal. I don't even think it's possible for 2 or 3 days anyway. But I need to see this thing in some sort of upward facet where I'm going to be looking confident. I probably want to see a break of this resistance, but for it to do a lot more to show that it's ready to have a significant break to it. And it's not showing that right now. And I want to finish this off by talking about LBC, or library credits, which on its daily time frame had its move all the way up to here, and the down correction, and since then has been in this sideways range. And when we shorten this out to the 4-hour time frame, I get an interesting story within this pattern from the June highs. There's a twice hit key support level. And since this stage, it had a nice resistance point in here. I like how it's been supporting this band, and oh, it's now just leaving it. So there's an early indication that this thing might be ready to at least have a play to this previous high of 28. Let's shorten it out even further. This is the 30-minute time frame, and there's some huge volume in here, a huge continuation within it. So that's impressing me as well. I own tokens. I've added more tokens within the breakout as well. If the market comes back down for any short-term movements, we'd be looking at where it came from. 24 is an obvious level, as is the area of around 23.5. Maybe even north towards 23.6, or basically this is an area short term where it may encounter some support, but this thing definitely is short term. Even where it stands, breaking by here, could very easily sustain a move or have a move occur into the 28 range. Whereas the daily time frame, it's got a decent amount of ways to go, but just even seeing here, we can see, you know what, this thing might be ready to have its big move. And when you don't want to buy on these upper levels, you want to wait for it to correct and some sort of pattern to come through. And this is one pattern I think will have a good chance of having long-term gains come in. That's why I bought some more library credits. And thank you for tuning in to today's video, and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.